This is the 2025 Honda NX500. Hey everybody, welcome back to Cruiseman's Garage. Today, we're going to dive into this little NX500. The NX500 has a wheelbase of 56.8 inches, a seat height of 32.8 inches, it has a curb weight of 432 pounds, and a 4.7 gallon fuel tank. The NX has 7.1 inches of ground clearance. There's no doubt that styling is very subjective. Everybody has different tastes, but I kind of like the look of this NX500. To me, it certainly looks the part of an adventure bike. It's got the right kind of wheels and tires. You could argue that maybe spoked wheels would be better for an off-road adventure bike. Larger wheel up front, the smaller in the back. It's got some really aggressive looking adventure styling to it, much more so than some of the other bikes I've seen in the Honda lineup. Powering this NX500 is a 471cc liquid-cooled 18-degree parallel twin with double overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder, and 10.7:1 compression. The oil filler cap is right here on top of the engine. Makes it pretty easy to add oil if you need to. Now there's not a dipstick, or I couldn't find one. What you have instead is this little window down here, and you can see when the oil level is in the middle. Now the bike's on the side stand, so of course it's not showing any oil level, but when you put it centered or level, the oil will show up in that window. And once again, Honda has made the bike very easily maintainable. Coolant reservoir easily accessible over here on the left side of the engine. Now the oil filter is at the very front of the engine here, and it's kind of hanging out there in the wind, but it's sort of protected by your exhaust pipe here. That does cover a little bit of it. There is no engine guard to protect the crankcase. I'm sure there's an aftermarket solution with an engine guard or bash plate. I think Honda did a really nice job on this dual exhaust. Very high quality finish on the exhaust, and I think even the muffler, even though there's no chrome, it's very attractive. I like that it's swept up. I think that gives it a little bit more of off-road credibility. Plus, going down dirt or rocky roads, you're less likely to have things kick up and damage your muffler. Now, power gets delivered to the rear wheel by a 6-speed manual transmission and a 520 O-ring chain. Up front, you've got a 19-inch cast aluminum wheel wrapped in a 110/80 19-inch tire. This bike came with Dunlop tires. The rear tire is a 160/60 17-inch mounted again to a cast aluminum wheel. The braking on the rear is a single piston caliper with a 240mm pedal style disc with ABS. Up front, you've got two piston calipers with a 296mm pedal style disc, also with ABS. The front forks are a pretty beefy looking 41mm inverted Showa with 5.2 inches of travel. Rear suspension is almost invisible. It's a ProLink single shock with 9-position spring preload adjustability and 5.3 inches of travel. Now when it comes to the hand controls, they're very simple. They're very basic, but they're very easy to find. They're very good reach. They're not backlit except for this one menu controller. For some reason, Honda saw fit to backlight this little menu controller. The bike does come equipped with traction control, and Honda very wisely made it very easy to turn on or off with this switch on the left-hand control. Keeps you from having to go into any kind of a menu system to turn it on or off. The mirrors are a good size, and at just about any speed, they're rock solid. The TFT screen is bright enough to see even in bright sunlight. It does have a lot of adjustability. There are a lot of different things that you can set using the little menu controller. You may have noticed the screen went black, and that's because it has a day-night feature. You can set that to automatic, or you can manually set it to whichever you want. Now, I can also go in here and adjust some settings. And you see you have quite a bit of functionality, and it's a very easy menu system to understand. So you can choose between the bar style, speedometer, a circle, or an even simpler one than that. Of course, you can change what you see down here, the total miles. You can see your trip meter, A and B. You do pay a little price for the ground clearance because the seat height on this NX500 is actually higher up than it is on the NT1100, and that's good for off-road, but if you have short legs, you might have issues. I've got a 32 to 33 inch inseam, somewhere in that range, and I have no trouble flat footing this bike. A 29 inch inseam might be a little bit of a stretch, but there might be ways that you could lower this bike to make it a little more comfortable for you. The LED headlights on the NX500 are super bright, and they really do improve your visibility to oncoming traffic. The front turn signals are surprisingly large and also very bright. The tail light and brake light are relatively large for this size bike and very bright, as are the rear-facing turn signals. I think if you're any taller than 5'9", 5'10", you're probably going to want to get a taller windscreen. I know there's several on aftermarket that are available. There's even one that's adjustable. And you're probably looking at a couple $100 if you need a taller windscreen. The windscreen does an acceptable job in around the town driving, say up to 45 miles an hour. You get out on the highway, you're going to get a lot of wind buffeting with this small windscreen. The seat on this NX500 is firm, but it's a lot more comfortable than it looks. And Honda did an excellent job of sculpting the seat so it's more narrow at the front. And that's going to help those of you that might have shorter legs, help your feet to reach the ground. So just in case you didn't know, this is not my NX500. This is actually a press bike that came from Honda. And when the bike came in, it had some Honda accessories that you don't get on a stock NX500. So let's talk about some of those accessories now. This bike came with Honda's magnetic tank bag. It's very easy to pop off. There's a couple of little clips here you can remove, and then it's just got magnets that hold it on. To get access to your gas cap, these are just held in place with magnets. You can simply lift this up and out of the way, and you shouldn't have to remove it. I think you can just tilt it up, and you can see here they've got the paint protection film to keep these magnets. You know, dust would get in between there and scratch your paint. I've got some insurance docs in here, but you can see you can put a ball cap in there if you need to. You got plenty of room for all kinds of things. There's also a little pocket back here where you can put, I've got a little rag, clean my camera lens. Now it does have some mounting points up at the front that are sort of permanent. So when you remove this tank bag, let me take it off and I'll show you. But when you remove it, you can see this part stays on. This bike also came equipped with these kind of hard plastic nylon feeling panniers, and as well as the top case. Now these are removable. I've never removed them, but we're going to try here in just a second just to see how difficult it is. Let's see if we can figure out how hard it is to remove these panniers, and let's take a closer look at these panniers. The top box, by the way, will hold a full-size modular helmet. Okay, let's take a little bit closer look at these panniers. Now you can see that there's already, if you can see it, there's some little scuff marks here. I presume the journalist or whoever that had this bike before me may have actually dropped the bike, or maybe they hit something on the way in, or maybe the transport company did, but it can scar up, and I don't know that you'd be able to get that out. It has kind of a black nylon plastic look to it. Now these panniers are opened and closed using these zippers that go almost all the way around the pannier. Nylon gussets and a strap keep the pannier cover from going all the way open. Inside each of these panniers, I found this little rain cover, and that's because on their own, these panniers are not waterproof. That zipper is not waterproof. If you want to secure the contents inside the pannier, you'll need to use these zippers. They have little rings, and you can slip a padlock in there. If you look inside the top of each of the panniers, you'll find a little nylon pouch, and Honda has even provided a little combination padlock that you can use to secure the panniers. To remove the panniers, you unlock it by pushing in this button and turning it to the left. Next to the mounting hardware, there's this little release button. If you press that down, you simply pull up on the pannier and they pop right off. And if we look on the back side of the pannier, you can see the 3 mounting points that hold the pannier in place. And then on the mounting hardware, you can see the 3 little studs that they slip back into. Just line up those slots with the studs and push down and it latches right into place. Now this top case actually is pretty substantial. I think it's 38 liters. There's a little latch mechanism underneath here that you just kind of lift up, and it's a little tricky. It took me a while to get the feel for it. But basically, when you open it up, it's got some little rubber or plastic stops here to keep it from flopping all the way over. And like I said, you can fit a full-face helmet in here. If you own this motorcycle, you could probably get by with the tank bag and the top case in most cases. The panniers are nice, but they seem a little expensive. And I'm not sure how they will survive a drop out in the on a dirt road or something. I'm just not sure how sturdy they are. The top box, on the other hand, feels pretty sturdy. Now, it's removable as well, and I've never removed it, but we're going to try here in a minute. I do want to talk a little bit about this latching mechanism, and that's the one that, to me, it feels, I don't know, it just doesn't feel very high quality. That's the only drawback, in my opinion, of this top box. I think they could have done a little better job with this latch. Basically, to latch this, you close the top and you have to kind of press down on it. And then this has a little plastic hook that will grab that top case and pull it down. Now it's latched. It will not open, but it's not locked. To unlatch it, you simply lift up or pull out and kind of wiggle it, and then it comes open. So if I go in here now and I want to lock this case, you can see it won't turn. It won't let me lock the case. Well, let me try unlatching it and see if that makes a difference. Okay, now I can turn the key. So let me try locking it now. And now, okay, now it's locked. Okay, you cannot open the latch, so that's what it is. So if you want to, you can leave it unlocked. You just have to make sure while it's unlatched that you remove the key. And then you don't have to use the key every time. So I guess that's a pretty good feature. So as you might expect, Honda's thought of everything. The only way you can remove this, you cannot get access to this latch that holds this top case on the bike unless you turn the key to the side. You lift up on this little door and it just comes right off. And to reinstall the top case, you can see there's like a little plastic, I call it a hook, right here. And that just slips right underneath this base. And then this little hook fits right down here. You just hold up this little door, slip that underneath, pop it down, and now it's locked in place. Okay, let's get this NX500 out of the garage and get it on the road. First, let's see how these LED headlights work after dark. It lights up the road pretty good for a single big LED up front. It might look like a smooth road, but there's actually quite a few little bumps and dips in this roadway. And the suspension's doing a pretty good job of soaking it up. All of the hand controls are very easy to reach. They do have like a little menu toggle button over here. I haven't played with it enough yet. It lets you choose different things on this dash or screen, as it were. I'll go into that in a little more detail when I do my final review. Very comfortable riding 45 miles an hour in fourth gear. It's much smoother once you get into fourth gear. Feels very comfortable on these little surface streets, these boulevards. This might end up being a pretty neat little commuter bike that, you know, you could ride around town, but if you had to get off-road on a dirt road or a gravel road, I don't think you'd have a problem, because it has plenty of ground clearance. 40 miles an hour in fourth gear. This bike's got plenty of pull. I'm pretty convinced already that this would be a great little commuter bike. And I looked at the mileage numbers. Now, I don't know how accurate the computer is, but they do have a computer on this bike that will show you the average mileage you're getting, and it showed 63 miles to the gallon. So if that's accurate, that's pretty good. Now, I imagine it would get better than that. Since we're stopped and I can't really talk much about anything, I'll also mention that I have added an NX500 t-shirt on our merchandise website. For those of you out there that own an NX500, you can show your passion for the bike with that t-shirt. And I'll put a link in the description of this video where you can go right to that t-shirt if you're interested. It does help support the YouTube channel. On this NX500, I was able to fit everything I bought into this top box. I thought I was going to have to use one of the panniers for the potato chips, but I was able to get everything fit. It's very, very tall. It holds actually quite a bit, and I have not had to use the panniers yet, but the top box held everything I needed. So tell me in the comments down below, if you own an NX500, what are your thoughts on this motorcycle? My next test will be to take it out on the highway and get it up to like 60, 65 miles an hour and see how it handles some of the highways. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of wind. You expect that on a smaller bike with a small windshield. Okay, right now we're at 56 miles per hour at about 4,300 RPM, 4,500 RPM. Right now we're at about 68 miles an hour. Sixth gear. At about 5,800 RPM.
On this particular stretch of highway in Dallas-Fort Worth, I eventually got the bike up to 75 miles an hour, and it handles it with no problem. You do get quite a bit of wind, of course, at that speeds. Need a bigger windshield if you're going to be riding this bike on the highway for any length of time.
So I'm here with Dale Jones again, and he just took this NX500 out here on some trails, and I think he's worn out.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired. That sand, it gets fairly deep out there. Even with these street tires, it was enough to get me around this circuit. I don't know, maybe 30 minutes to get from one side to the other. Nothing too treacherous, no rocks, just a lot of sand. A little bit of wet spots. I avoided the wet spots. But yeah, the bike's good. I turned the traction control off right here so I could use the brakes without any issues.
What are your thoughts on the suspension?
Plenty. Yeah, I didn't bottom out at all. I was a little bit worried. There was a couple of drop-offs that I was worried about those exhaust pipes being vulnerable like they are at the bottom. There's no skid plate or anything on this bike. I guess if you were going to trail ride or use it as an adventure bike, you'd want to doll it up with that, maybe some crash bars, some hand guards even would be helpful. Bike's super light. Twist the throttle and she goes. You don't have to do a whole lot of clutching and shifting on this bike.
What gear do you stay in most of the time?
First and second.
First and second?
On this, yeah.
Dale's already got all his stuff rigged up here. He's got his 360 cameras, GPS mounted. I don't think he's giving this bike back.
Yeah, I think I might just keep it. It's a fun bike to have.
So now it's time for me to give you my final assessment of this NX500. I guess if somebody asked me to sum it up in one word, I would probably go with fun, because this bike is a lot of fun to ride. I forgot how much fun it is to ride this size bike with this 500cc engine. Okay, 471 cc's. You know, I'm used to riding this monstrosity over here, which I absolutely love, but it's the biggest bike Honda makes, one of the biggest bikes on the road. And I ride it on a daily basis. You get on a bike like this and it kind of takes you back to what we remember motorcycling was like back in the day. You can take it off-road if you need to a little bit. It's not a hardcore mountain climbing bike, but if you need to go down a dirt road or a fire road or something like that, you're not going to have any issues with this bike. If you need a commuter bike that's inexpensive to operate, this is also a great choice. I think this 500 to 650 cc range is a bike that anybody can live with. It's big enough to get you where you need to go on the highway, and yet it's small enough and light enough that you don't really feel like you're having to manage it or muscle it around. It's just, you can back it up. You don't need reverse. You can walk it back. I do like the accessories that Honda offers. You can get heated grips. They also have the hand guards, which I think would be a good option for most people. Not so much for tip over hand protection, but just to block some more of the wind. Like I mentioned in the earlier part of the review, I personally, at my height, 6'2" with a 32-inch inseam, I'd want a taller windshield. I know Givi, is it Givi or Givi? I'm not know how you say it. They make one that I think is adjustable, looks pretty nice. And there's National Windshield makes one. There's 2 or 3 aftermarket brands that make products for this. If I were planning to take this bike off-road for any serious amount of time, I'd definitely get some sort of engine protection underneath. The panniers, I think, are nice. They're interesting. But since they're not waterproof, if it started raining, I don't think I'd want to have to get off the bike and get out and put the little rain covers on. And they just seem a little expensive to me. I think the top case is a better value with what you get. And plus it has this little pad on the back, so if you do carry a passenger. I like the simplicity of the bike. I think the screen and the simplicity of the menus is very excellent design. Hand controls couldn't be better. And you got that Honda reliability just all the way around. You know this bike is going to last tens of thousands of miles. Just great return on investment. I personally love the bike. I think it's a winner. I actually think I like it better in some respects than the NC750. And I really liked that bike. What I loved most about that bike was the DCT. I wish they offered this bike with a DCT. It only comes with a 6-speed manual, but it's a very good transmission. Very smooth shifting transmission. I didn't have any issues finding neutral. This bike has a few other options we talked about earlier. And I think for, what is it, $7,400, the base price of this motorcycle, yeah, it's a bargain. I think it's a real winner. and I just don't think you could go wrong. So anyway, let me know in the comments section down below, what do you think of this NX500? Love to hear your comments on the bike. If you own one of these, I'd like to hear what your experience has been with the NX500. And if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. That really does help my YouTube rankings. Always looking to increase our subscriber base. Thanks again for joining me today, and until I do another motorcycle review on Cruiseman's Garage, remember what I always say: ride often, but ride safe.